Do you ever feel like people just aren't listening to you, or maybe you are listening to people but not really hearing what they're saying? This is going to be a conversation for you if you want to learn how to tap into being a better listener so that your life can change, not only in your business, but also in your personal life. Our guest here today, Susanne Eckstrom, she's going to be talking about this, how she was able to do even just one simple thing that she started doing that helped her in her business as well as her personal life. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, everybody. My name is Linda Sunshine West. I'm the founder and CEO at Action Takers Publishing, where we help you to share your story, get it out into the world to make a greater impact on the planet. Our mission is to empower 5 million women and men to share their stories. And we have with us today one of our authors, Susanne Eckstrom. And she is a person who helps people, CEOs, to up level and to help their people be better themselves. And so, Susanne, welcome to the show. Happy to have you. Why don't you just make a quick introduction?
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me. So my name is Susanne Eckstrom. I live in Sweden, and I am a CEO coach. And I work mainly with companies that are in the growth phase of somewhere between 50 to 300 people, employees. Because what I've learned as many years as a management consultant is that in the phases of when you have these number of employees, a lot of things start happening, and especially if you are the founder and you go from being everywhere, knowing everything, knowing everyone's name, and you suddenly realize that I don't know everyone's name. I don't know. And why are people just coming here to work? Why aren't they feeling this like fantastic company culture that we created? And how can I make people work together, because they are starting to work in silos and they are not talking to each other, and there will be irritation and frustrations everywhere. I don't know what to do. So yes, so that is what I do. I coach CEOs so that they can build companies, winning companies where people love to work.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned about the, going from the like having those personal connections to, I don't know everybody. And that's exactly how I started feeling once we started publishing more and more books, because, the first book, I knew we only had 13 people in the first book. And now I'm talking about a book, not a company, but in that first book, we had 13 people. So I got to know them all intimately. And then the next 2 books it was like a total of 50 people. And so I still got to know those people intimately. But then once we started going into doing 2 and 3 books a month, sometimes I started losing touch, and it feels strange. And so it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because maybe that's getting me ready for the growth of my business, which, now we have 7 people on our team. And so maybe that idea there is getting me ready for the growth of our business. But how did you get into this type of work? Because, you didn't come out of high school and say, hey, I'm going to do coach CEOs. Like, what was the journey for you to get there?
No, I started out actually as a programmer, and we did fantastic things during the .com and previous the .com, and the .com was in the beginning of the 2000s, if you are younger than that, so you don't know about it. But yeah, so I was one of the main owners of a large Swedish .com, and we had companies in different countries of the world, and I flew everywhere when I was living in the Netherlands, starting up that office. And one day we had to file for bankruptcy because our investors didn't want to put in more money when the stock market turned and started going bearish. So that was a not so nice experience. And then I realized that I wanted to work with companies and people that not just only leads to an IT system being implemented. I wanted to work with the real problems that people have, not just IT systems and solutions to the problems. And so I worked for many years as a management. Many years. It sounds like I'm like 100 years old, but I'm not. But I worked for many years as a management consultant, and we were working with large international companies and smaller companies in different industries in different countries. And I learned that regardless of the size of the company, and regardless of the industry of the company, and regardless of where in the world you're situated, you have pretty much the same problems. You have to deal with your people, so to speak, and you can do that in different ways. You can control them. You can have your fingers in every cookie jar of the company as a CEO. Or
That's
you can,
tiring though, right? That's like tiring.
Yeah. And you can, or you can trust them, delegate in an efficient way, and empower them instead. And to be able to do that, you need to listen to them, and you need to agree with them and trust them, and empower them so that they can do your work, hopefully also better than you do it. Even if you really like to do this task, you might have to delegate it for both elevating yourself, your company, and your people.
Yeah, there's a saying, the founder of UGG Boots, his name is Brian Smith, and he always says, if people can do it 80% as good as you, is that good enough? And I think a lot of times that's one of the challenges with delegating, is knowing when to let go and who to let go to. So there's a saying you have, and I wrote it down to make sure I say it right. And you say, wear your large ears to work. I love this phrase. And so why don't you talk to us a little bit about what that means and how you've been able to implement that into your business life as well as your personal life?
Yeah. And many people think that they actually listen to people and hear them out, but many either try to do something at the same time, like they are going to I'm just going to answer the email at the same time as I'm talking to you, but you won't notice. And others might be really listening, but only to know what to answer. So you are focusing already on your own answer instead of actually focusing on what the other person says. And if you are in a management position and someone comes to you with a problem, for example, you might listen to defend yourself. And this is not my problem. It's them over there or whatever. And you should know better. Solve it yourself. And it's when you really listen to understand that people feel heard. And how do they know that you understand? You do that by not parroting their way of saying the same thing, but to summarize, to recreate what they are saying, so that they feel you heard them, and so they feel gotten. It doesn't mean that you have to do anything about their complaints, for example. It might be that this is really counterproductive to what your company's goals are about, but still they feel you heard them. And to do that, you need to have time, you need to have focus, and you need to have an interest to do this, to actually listen to your people. And to be able to have all those three aspects available, you need to free up time. And for many CEOs of different size of companies, their problem is that they are stuck working in their business instead of freeing up time to work on the business. And when I talk to this with many people, they actually are a bit afraid about what does it mean to work on your business. I'm so familiar with sitting through all these meetings, having these same weeks repeating themselves. I don't have to think about how they look like. I'm actually putting out fires day in, day out. That is my main thing to do as a CEO, or I'm doing all the important sales calls. I do everything with my clients, and we have budget meetings, and we have a lot of follow-ups. So aren't I working on my business? No, you're not. You're actually putting a lot of time into the operation of your business, and for me as an outsider, it's actually pretty easy to spot how you can free up at least 8 hours a week to work more on your business. And when people hear this, they are shocked. And when they hear what I have, for what kind of suggestions I have, they say, I know this already. This is like, you don't come with anything new. No, most of the time I don't do that. But it's going from knowing to actually doing it. And if you start paying attention to what you invest, spend, or waste your time on, you will be shocked, because you will see how much time you just merely spend. And for example, you have a lot of 1-hour meetings, and you can pretty easily shrink the meeting time to 25 minutes, for example, and have more productive meetings, more motivated participants, a better outcome, and you suddenly freed up half an hour instantly, and get better results out of the meeting as well. So it's going from knowing how to do things to actually do them, and
that's a big one.
Yeah. And also, for example, if we have those 1-hour meeting again, you might just be there at the last 15 minutes when the decisions are made, or at the 15th minutes, and then you freed up 45 minutes. And for a CEO of a company between 50, or say a CEO of a company around 8 to 20 million US dollars in revenue, a value, an hour of a CEO's time is around $2,000 US dollars. So freeing up 1 hour frees up a value of $2,000 US dollars. And what if you could simultaneously, as you free up the time, you could also create new money-making activities and opportunities during that hour, instead of merely spend it in a meeting that you multitask through and answer some emails at the same time. So there are huge amount of activities you can do to be more focused, free up time, and be more available to your people. And you think that, I talk to my people. Yeah, maybe at the coffee machine, but really, really talking and asking important questions and listening to their answers, that is a skill in itself. And many people, they don't think that because you have 2 ears and you have one mouth, of course I can do this. But it is actually a really important skill to both ask the questions, open-ended questions, for example, but then really paying attention to the answer.
Well, there's a saying that, and I can't remember who said it, is that people will not remember what you said or what you did, but they'll remember how you make them feel. And feeling heard, I think, is a big one. I had 49 jobs in 36 years. So as an employee, I'm a great example of somebody. For me, it was because I did not feel heard. I felt like anytime I shared an idea, a suggestion, that nobody even wanted to hear it, let alone just at least like hear me out and let me have an opinion or a thought, And so I think that's really a big piece right there. And so I had one boss that I stayed with for 6 years. Other than that, the longest I ever held any job was a year and a half. And it was because she listened to me. And that was all I wanted. The only reason I left that job was because she left. She left. I was no longer heard. And so I left. So let's talk about, though, the wearing your large ears to work, but also wearing your large ears to home. Like when we go to work and then we come home and we turn that off. And now we have to focus at home to our children, to our significant other, spouse, or what have you. So how do we turn those large ears in at work? I mean, at home. And how did you do it? And it's changed your life and your son's life. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And as you say, don't just wear your large ears to work. Wear them everywhere, with your family and your friends, everywhere. Everywhere, you might say.
Yeah.
This typical Swedish joke. Boring as hell. Sorry. I have 2 sons. And one of my sons, the youngest, he has ADHD and autism. And I found that out when he was in his preteens, that he has ADHD. And during COVID, he was homeschooled because of he had teachers that weren't supposed to be in the school, and that turned out for him not to come back to school at all. So he was what we in Sweden calls home sitter. So he didn't participate in school. He didn't participate in life. He was merely only in his room. And especially after we got the autism diagnosis, he's like anyone else. He's just a bit different, and he doesn't concentrate that well. So all the resources that the school had weren't enough at all. So going to school, like going to work, for example, and feel every day that you are a failure. You can't succeed. You can't do anything. You don't know what the teacher is talking about. Of course, you don't want to go. And I realized 1.5 years ago that we were stuck. We have this great relationship, me and my son, and I realized that even if I preach about listening to your people at work, I wasn't listening to my son. I was listening to him in a way that he would say no to any questions I asked him. And then I asked him the question and he said no. So that's also a thing that is important when you're listening to people, that you try to set aside your judgments, your preconceptions. If you like the person, if you don't like the person, what other people is telling you about this person, etc., etc. So for me, I listened to my son, that he always said no. I had to bribe him to get him out of the house. And when I realized that, I also realized that I was trying to fix him. I was trying to make him be like my other son, for example, like people are when they are normal. And I tried to fix him so that because this wasn't the life I was supposed to have. And when I realized that, I also saw that I can love him for everything he is and for everything he isn't. And that shifted for me, and I started to listen to him in a really different way, so that I was talking to what was important to him, not to me. And that's also something that's important in the business life, that you might have your agenda, but that's not always the important thing. That you need to listen to, really disappear everything else and really listen to that person and listen to what does he or she want. And I managed to do that, and that resulted in 3 months after I realized this, he moved to a specialized boarding school, a high school, 2 hours away from where we live, and he restarted his life. So instead of being in his home all alone all day, he now goes to school, he participates with other people, he has friends, he takes the train home. And after 1.5 years in school now, he's, instead of being 4 years behind, he's now only 1 year behind. And he reads 3 extra subjects, I think it's called in English, just to catch up. So he reads all the subjects that he should do in the second year of high school, but also three extra subjects. So you can completely transform or turn around a person in your family or an employee or a loved one. You can transform everything about, and not about, but how you listen to them.
Well, now let me ask this, because you mentioned, so with your son, you started listening differently. You started listening for what his needs and or wants were, more than coming from like your perspective or your agenda, as you mentioned, right? And so now in 3 months, like, this is just absolutely incredible that you took him, ADHD, autism, took him like out of the bedroom, out of his bedroom that he'd been in, and put him in a school. Now he's with all these other people, these strangers. How would you say here's what I'm trying to wrap my mind around, is you were learning how to listen to him better. And so your communication with him became better. But how did that communication transfer over to a different environment? Because now, you said he is, meeting people, he's, going on the public transportation and all this. How did he now learn how to listen better himself, or to speak better so that he could better communicate his needs and wants? And through this process, I'm just kind of curious how that happened.
Yeah. It was really difficult for him in the beginning, but he has always been a social guy. And when you hear about a person with autism, you think about someone who can't communicate. That's the stereotype of autism, I think. And ADHD, that is a boy laying on the floor in the supermarket, just shouting and screaming.
Right.
And he has both of these diagnoses. But yeah, until he was 10, 11, he was this generous, social, like really lovely guy. And when he came into the preteens, people with autism, they don't know about, they can't read what's been said between the lines. They can't, they don't know if people are laughing with them or at them. They say something stupid. So they don't have all those social codes that most of us have. So now he's staying at the boarding school where everyone is like him. And all the teachers, they have a special education to really teach these people. So they have small classes. They are like 7-8 people. So gradually he started to open up and communicate more and reach out to other people and trying to connect with them. But that people with autism, they can live pretty much all their lives pretty much by themselves. They don't need other people. So of course it's important to him as well to practice communicating and for all our companies out there, you have employees that have either ADHD or autism. I can bet pretty much anything that you have people like that too. And for a CEO, it's important to treat people not the way. The first step is to treat people the way you want to be treated. But maybe not all people want to be treated like you want to be treated. So the next step is to treat people like they want to be treated. And that is different from each and every one. Certain people want to have like praises and recognition in front of the whole team. Other people want to have the one-on-one. And as their CEO manager, you need to know this. Otherwise, people will feel uncomfortable around you. So there's so many things you can solve by listening to your people and finding out what makes them tick. What do they need or want to do? How can you, for example, if you have a C player, for example, it's so like you say A players, B players, and C players. A C player could be someone that is in the totally different role. And if you, instead of firing that person, hire another one, that will be costly for you and take time. If you can transform that person into a role that he or she loves, they can instantly become an A player. Instead of being someone whose potential you might use for like 20-30%. You can be a high achiever instead. But you might not know that because you don't listen to them. And I don't mean if you have a company of 100 people that you have to listen to all of them, but you need to train your management team members to also listen to their people so that you together can do the job.
Well, you were talking about, empowering your employees, and this is part of it, is by listening to them to find out, what is it that they need, what is it that they want, so that you can help them achieve that. And how do you do that if you don't listen to them? Well, let's make a little shift here. I love what you're talking about here. As far as the way for us to listen better. And I want to share first that you can connect with Susanne at beasmarterleader.com. beasmarterleader.com. And let's talk just briefly about your chapter in this book. One of the things we're here today to talk about is your chapter in Leadership Unveiled, which you can get your copy of the book at actiontakerspublishing.com/unveiled, UNVEILED. And then your chapter in this book is called From Not Good Enough to Have the Power to Create. So why don't you share just a little snippet about your chapter?
Yeah. When I was young, I played basket, a lot of basket. I was in my high school team and played every day. And I ended up having a coach who put me as a center. And I was a guard. I wanted to play guard. And because I was tall, he put me as a center. And I didn't like that, and I wasn't old enough to know how to communicate that in a good way. And so my motivation, my everything, I started dread going to the trainings and everything, and my motivation just went down, and I, going from one of the best players in the team, I was getting worse and worse, and just one day I left the team, and I never played basketball since. And I have had this feeling with me all my life that I'm not good enough, and that I really need to try and do extra, but all the time my brain is telling me that you're not good enough, you can't do this, Susan, and so on. And I've worked a lot with this the last couple of years, and really see that instead of when you pick up the phone to call a prospect, instead of thinking, "Ooh, that person, he seems like he's a really, really, really great CEO. He doesn't need my help. So yeah, I don't call him, or I'll try to call him anyway." Ooh. And then that phone call won't be so great. Instead, so instead of creating myself as small and not needed, I can create myself as irresistible, powerful, and yeah, being fun, or whatever I want to create myself as. So, and also that if you have had a phone call with a no, for example, that doesn't mean anything for the next call you're making. It doesn't mean that the next person will say no to you. The next call you have is completely new, and everything is around your mindset, how you decide how you will show up, and also again listening to the person in the other side of the phone, for example, or in a Zoom meeting, to really hear what is the big issues for them, instead of trying to stick to your agenda. So that is what I mean. So going from this basketball, horrible basketball experience, to having the .com crash, and all the way through, always thinking about, ooh, when are they going to find out I'm a fake? It's like imposter syndrome, like really, really huge imposter syndrome, and instead switching that to see what is actually possible for me if I don't listen to my baggage, if I don't listen to my limiting beliefs, if I don't accept being in the position or being in the space that I am now, regardless if it's within my own company and what I can create with that, or in relationships with friends and family. You can create anything you want.
That's so awesome. I believe in that too. You know, so those limiting beliefs are what's stopping us, you know, pulling us back. And a lot of times those are limiting beliefs are beliefs that other people had in us when we were young, and pulling those into our future. Like, we don't need to do that. I like the saying that they say no is next opportunity. So when you get off a call, if somebody said no, just say, okay, it's time for the next opportunity. Like, put on your big girl pants and make that next call. Just make that next call, right?
Yeah, and if you get to know, and if you get to know, the next yes is one step closer.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. The each no, it gets you one step closer. Closer. Well, I want to thank you, Susanne, so much for everything you do to help people to, you know, up level themselves, to empower them with the tools that they need in order to empower their employees, those CEOs. If you want to reach out to Susanne, you can reach her at beasmartleader.com. If you'd like to get a copy of the book, Leadership Unveiled, you can get your copy at actiontakerspublishing.com/unveiled. There's also free gifts from our authors over there. So if you head on over there, you'll get those free gifts. So again, thank you, Susanne, so much for everything you do. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Never block your blessings, because you're never going to know where it comes from. And just like me putting this book, of course, I had aspirations and dreams of doing it, and went to a few people, and they dragged and couldn't really make it happen. I played in George Lopez's golf tournament. I play in it every year. In the gifting suite, it was a publishing company, a white lady in there selling her books, and she usually does books for inspiration. Her name is Linda. Her publishing company is called Action Takers, and she usually does uplifting and inspirational books for women. But she had some cold titles that I seen that caught my eye, and me and her was chopping it up. I said, you know what, I've been wanting to do my book. And she said, let's do it. And that's just how it happened.
Damn, but it's a hustle. You're hustling,
and
yes.
We started talking, and she found me a ghostwriter. Got the ghostwriter. We started brainstorming and networking and recording different stuff. Took about 8 months, and then it just blossomed. Now that everybody's seeing the movement and what I'm doing with my book, I'm helping 10 other people put their books up because they never had action on a publishing company, didn't know where to go, got crazy stories in their head. A couple people got the stories already written, done.
Damn.
But just didn't have a place. My boy Miguel Nunez, the actor.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Full story done, packaged, everything. Didn't have a publishing company. So I'm going to help him. We're going to run it through Action Takers.
That's what you do, Percy. You just help out everybody. You really do.
Yeah.
You have a big heart. You can be a little intimidating at times. I'm just
going
to let y'all know, but I love Percy. He got a big heart.
That comes from my grandmother.